God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And welcome, welcome, welcome. So, in my prayers, so I have a lot of fears, okay? I have fear of somebody else being in a car, somebody else driving. I have fear of airplanes. I have fear of steps. I just have all these fears, and I have just thought, well, that's the meal I was served. And it turns out that I got a real, and this is like maybe one of the only ones, tongue lashing from God to say, you are in my way. You have got to step out from this. You have got to step, you know, and saying that it's coming from me. So it's like, it just caught me dead. This is like yesterday or the day before. And so the topic for tonight will be willingness. Willingness, what can I give you guys? I don't mean what can I give you? I mean, you guys, what can I give to God to get better on this thing? How can I, what do I do? What do I do? Well, I can have willingness. And man, I'm telling you, when he hit me with that, and he's a good God. But when he hit me with that, man, I'm a believer. I am a believer, and that would be a great thing for me not to carry that fear all the time. What does the book say? It should be. Uh, it should be. Uh, the fear should be classed with theft because it just robs us, and it has been robbing me. So I'm kind of excited on the one hand that it's going to be me and God nose to nose, and please, God help me. And then I'm also afraid for he tells me to go up on the, you know, pole and dive off. So we're just going to find out what the heck's going to happen. So does this sound like a topic that we could talk about tonight? All right. And it's okay to tell the truth. I'll just put that out there. You know what I mean? We had a guy in our home group that would go up and talk. It was a call-up meeting to the podium, and he had gone up for years. And then one time he got up and he said, I've been lying about how much sobriety I've had for all these years. And he got a chance to get straight. So we'll just count on the truth, all right? So, Ember, you seem to react to this. Is it too early, or would you be willing to share?
I was thinking, feeling you were going to call me first. It was weird. I guess I called that in. My name is Amber. I'm an alcoholic, and it's definitely too early. But I'll just say a couple of truthful items. I love that the topic is willingness. I chair a meeting every other Tuesday night, and I was chairing last night, and I chose the story in the back of the big book called Freedom from Bondage, and she talks about willingness in there. The how of the program, honesty, openness, and willingness, and what's true for me today, and I really needed to read that last night, and I really need the topic of willingness to be brought up tonight. um, I got COVID 2 weeks ago,
Oh, no.
and I'm fine. I mean, I'm just in such deep gratitude that I'm fine, but I'm also like blue, like I'm flat and blue, and I haven't been making my meetings, and I missed you guys for the past couple weeks, and my other meetings, and there's like a calcification in my soul that is unwilling to move. I'm really, I don't know if it's stuck or hardened, or I but like I'm like it's like a barnacle vibe, and so and it's like I can conceptually think about willingness and read about it and hear about it, and it's like that risk topic that we talked about a few weeks ago. Like my heart is just I'm feeling that unwillingness, just to be very truthful. My heart feels unwilling. I'm like, yeah, I know willingness is great and it, but like, I just don't wanna. So, what I'm trying to do is let my body take the actions, and I know that my soul will follow and my spirit will follow, and this will change. So I dialed in at 7 and I said yes when you called on me, and I guess those are some willing actions. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your honesty in that. That's one of our faults in this group is the honesty. No, never mind. All right, so Kate, would you like to share?
Sure, I'm Kate. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here. So if honesty is our fault, do you want me to make up a bunch of stuff right about now?
Please, God, I'm sweating bullets up here. Oh,
give me a minute. I'm pretty quick at that. But no, anyway, thanks for the topic, Mickey. I was thinking, when you said talking about willingness, and I think in the 12 and 12, Bill Wilson talks about that, willingness is the key that unlocks the door. And what I've learned for myself about willingness, especially, pretty recently, is that I don't have to stay in the room. Right? I don't have to stay in there locked in my old ways of being, with my old familiar fears and those old familiar ways of being. If I've got the willingness, I can step into the room or, the light of freedom. But am I really willing?
That's it.
It's the difference between like when I was drinking, like, when you go through that stage where you want to quit, but you don't really want to quit. You know what I mean? Like your head knows that this ain't going well and we should probably not do this, but in your heart, you still don't really want to give it up. And I think for me, I truly believe for myself that if I sincerely, the book talks about we ask God to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He'd have us be. Like if I honestly, with the honest intent of my heart, ask for it, I believe at that moment it is given to me. At that moment. What has stopped me from, allowing God to remove that fear is the fear that I'm not going to be okay without it. So we just layer fear on fear, right? And so for me, I've had the belief that without this, because I believe that in some way it's keeping me safe, right? And I believe that if I really give this to God, well, crap, what's going to protect me now? And that, in my experience, is when I really have had and been able to lay down that fear. That is when I step into authentic power and protection. It's really hard to explain. It's like when I lay down that fear, that's when I realize that, oh, crap, all along I've been held. All along I've been protected. And essentially what I've been doing, you guys, is like I'm like a 3-year-old in a swimming pool of water, and it's only like 2 feet high, and I am, like fighting really hard and dog paddling to keep myself above the water. All I had to do was stand up. I mean, it was only 2 feet of water. I've been working really hard when I was always protected. I was always held. And it's when I have been able to lay down that fear that I truly step into that authentic power and protection. That's what you made me think about, Mickey. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kate. Yeah, the selfishness in it's me trying to protect myself. And I'll direct you how to drive, and I'm not gonna do, and blah 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 and all that stuff. And it's really augured me in. And I'm actually kind of excited to get the freedom that God wants me to have. So, Jack Hay, would you like to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jack, and I'm an alcoholic. Wow. As soon as you proposed this, I thought of how, to me at least, to my way of thinking, like the concept of willingness, it's kind of like the concept when we learn in the big book that selfishness is like the core of our problem, but it doesn't work like, okay, I'm going to be less selfish now based on that realization. And it's like willingness is the same sort of thing for me. It's not like I can just magically be like, oh yeah, now I'm going to be more willing. And it's weird because normally I would be talking about like something to do with my AA program, but I'm going to talk about something that happened to me with respect to my work. And I have some anxiety about a business trip that I have at the very end of this month. And I'm already worried about this trip. And then lo and behold, I got completely blindsided, as did my entire company, that I am going to be hosting a client site visit at my corporate headquarters next Wednesday with a colleague of mine. And this whole thing just came on us like the universe was dictating terms. We have a huge healthcare client. They're like, we want you to host this medical director and this and that. And my counterpart, who does my job, the same job as I do, we both were in this like immediate, like, holy shit, are you kidding me? We've got things on our schedules. And my situation, I have custody of my daughter next week. I have all these reasons why I immediately in my heart was like, I don't want to do this, as did my buddy. But I got on the phone with him and I said, hey man, I'm like, I think we're both doing the same thing. Like, we have to be willing to bend over backwards to try to make this happen. And it was one of those moments where I felt like God was tapping on my chest saying, you got to show up and you got to go because I'm asking you to go. And so it really kind of freaked me out. But then once I started taking actions consistent with like, hey, this is the right thing to do. Like, we've got to drop everything we're doing because my clients are right? I mean, they're my clients. And this particular client is a huge national client. So, but it was weird for me how I examined myself, not to throw my buddy under the bus with me, but just those initial excuses that came up for me versus like this deeper intuitive hit that was like, hey, I'm asking you to do this and it's going to be inconvenient or whatever. I got to take a flight at 5:30 in the morning. I'm coming up with all these reasons why it sucks. But I also thought I would read you guys something because this came to me right when you proposed the topic. This was from something I listened to earlier in the week from Thomas Merton, the book Thoughts in Solitude. It says, laziness and cowardice are two of the greatest enemies of the spiritual life. If you want to chew on something, chew on that a little bit because I've been chewing on it all week. Laziness and cowardice are two of the greatest enemies of the spiritual life. And then he says, laziness and cowardice put our own present comfort before the love of God. Whoa. I mean, like, whoa. And for me...
Thank you, Jack. I'm going to silence you now. I'm just kidding. Go right ahead.
I mean, you're welcome to.
No.
But it was really what I took from this thing that I was listening to in this book was how much of the time I go through the motions in my prayer life with God, like where I'm kind of a foot on the boat and a foot on the shore, and I'm going through the motions. And Merton basically calls us out and says, do you dare in your prayers with God? Do you dare? And I thought to myself, no, I really don't dare very much. I'm more hedging in my own outcome to my own prayer rather than saying God's answers usually don't look anything like what I prescribed for myself. I either don't pray, which is, I think, a lot of us would not want to admit in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's an option, not praying at all. But I think also calling out my own bullshit is like, how little of the time do I truly have confidence? That's the bottom line. Do I have confidence in God that God is going to come through for me? And I'm learning slowly. Right now, 2 years ago, Mickey and I saddled up working together, and I feel like I'm the slowest learner in the world. But I can look at my life from where I was 2 years ago and where I am today, and God has put me through so many things. And it's like, you know what? I still will take my life today because I feel a sense of freedom, and I don't feel like alcoholism is going to take my legs out. And I was 31 years without a drink 2 years ago, and I felt like I could drink any second. I don't feel that way today. Doesn't mean that I couldn't, but I feel protected. And I don't know. I need to be here. I had a lot to say tonight, but appreciate you guys listening. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jack. So our willingness, the willingness for me is to drop this fear. And then, as Kate was talking about, what's going to support me? Think about what I just said. What's going to support me is God. Nikki Goff from Desperation, Arizona. Oh, no.
I changed it.
Yeah, I love it.
Not more desperation anymore. Thanks, Mickey. Thanks for the topic. Hi, everyone. My name's Nikki. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here with all of you today. Okay, first off, I just have to say, Mickey, you blew my mind when you I like to think that I know what every single line in the Big Book means because I have a master's degree, and I am to this day still afraid sometimes to ask somebody, I don't know what this means in the Big Book. And so the line in the book that talks about fear ought to be classed with stealing, it seems to cause more trouble, has always baffled me. And I've tried to figure it out, and you just explained it, and I feel kind of silly, but I feel like I can be honest with you guys too. I literally didn't really know what that meant, and the way you said it just made everything click in my brain. And anyway,
I'm glad.
So I got a firework. And I mean, man, that's the truth. Like when I first came into AA, I didn't really think I was really afraid of anything. I was just super angry all the time and stomped around in my Doc Martens. And, you know, I wasn't willing to look at myself. I wasn't willing to ask questions. I wasn't willing to listen to other people until, you know, I was persuaded by King Alcohol to actually surrender. And, you know, this concept of willingness, you know, I feel like to some extent I've always had willingness since I've come into AA. But it's like I'm only willing to give God so much. And I don't know about anybody else on here, but I wonder if it's like the really bad control freaks that have a really hard time being willing to trust God. And what's funny about it is that, and this came up for me probably like at the beginning of the pandemic in a big way, was this like idea that control is an illusion, that we don't really have control. We just think we do. But that delusion is so powerful for me. And so like, it's been super difficult for me to have willingness to actually surrender my whole life and my whole will over to the care of God. But you know, I try and have always tried to surround myself with people in the program that are seeking God. I mean, right down from my very first sponsor, I asked her to sponsor me because of what she was saying in a meeting about God. And that attracted me. And, you know, almost every single person that I've worked with in the 12 years I've been in this program, I've worked with them because they have a relationship with God that I wanted. And each sponsor has unlocked a part of my spirit and kind of like continued me on this path of self-reflection, and just willingness to give a little bit more of my life to God. So, today, at least for the last week and a half, I've had the willing, and I know that's not very long, but it's a long time for me. And I'm just hoping that I can maintain this willingness. I've been able to wake up every morning and pray and meditate and go to bed at night with some prayer and meditation. And I don't know if it's just like residual effects of Thoughts Arizona, or if I like to think it's more the prayer and meditation in the morning and at night, and that willingness just to give God some time at the beginning and end of my day. But I have been able to be present in the day and not be driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. And I mean, I'm so grateful because I'm working in a job right now that is I'm utilizing skills and talents that I truly believe God placed in my heart. And I'm making half as much money as I was making 2 months ago. And I'm so happy right now. And I feel so useful. And I feel like I'm being a beacon of light for God. And so yeah, I'm just really full of gratitude. Thanks for calling on me, Mickey. And thank you to so many people in this meeting that continue to bear witness to God's power and love, because I think that's the greatest thing that any of us can do on this earth. And you guys just all give me a lot of inspiration. So thanks.
Thank you, Nikki. And there's a movie in the 60s, The Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner. It's a British movie. And The Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner. What happens when the sponsor can't change it and we don't get that confidence and a pat on the back? What if we're alone? What if we're just alone with God? Is that going to work? I think that's where it needs to get. It needs to go there. I read a book from the Vietnam War, and there was a 19-year-old kid on a helicopter going in on a mission, and the journalist noticed what was on his flak jacket. It said, "You and me, God," right? And I think we have to count that. We have to count that. Debbie O, would you like to share?
Thanks, Mickey. I'm Debbie, and I'm an alcoholic. What came to mind when you were first sharing at the beginning of the meeting was how in sobriety there have been a couple of times for me when I really knew that I wasn't willing to do whatever it was that had to happen. Usually I can recognize it, and I work a program, and so I'll call my sponsor or I'll keep praying and I'll do the things. But there've been a couple of things that have happened in sobriety. For example, something kind of devastating happened to one of my grandkids, and she was about 3. And I was so mad at God that I kept managing this situation for her. And I was not willing to give it up to him. And I remember that the one thing that is in common with the times that this has happened is that I have not shared it with a sponsor. Known that I haven't done that. I haven't been accountable and even tried to step forward. It took me a really long time. Not that I don't share. I mean, I'm very open. It's not that but I was purposely not wanting to be willing. And so I remember getting to the point where it was really getting to that point where I was managing this whole situation. And I got this really strong thought from God, you've got to get out of my way. And I don't know if that was really the wording or not, but I just remember that so strongly that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And so then I really did start, 10-stepping and inventorying, going to God and bringing someone else in to keep me accountable and bringing God into it, because I kept wanting to manage it. She was so little and she was like right in front of me. So it felt really good. I could hug her. I could physically make her feel good. Like I didn't want to give it to God. And so I did, though. I don't know how, like looking back now, but I did. And here's what happened. Like, I wouldn't say instantly, but pretty close. I moved out, God moved in, and it was so apparent what he was going to do in the situation. And so, and that's happened in these times when I've done that. I can see where God really has this plan. I wish that it didn't have to get to that point, but in sobriety a couple of times that's happened. So that's what I take. If I can get out of God's way, he can actually do his job. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, you say, well, I don't know that he actually said that. That's what he said to me. Mickey, you've got to get out of my way. And man, I'm moving, God. Help me, brother. John Bimmerstedt, would you like to share?
Sure. Thank you, guys. Mickey. I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. Right now, I'm working on willingness to live with the discomfort of the asymmetry in my behind me with this tilted picture. It's really bothering me. But I got to plug in, and it's willingness, right? And I remember the first way that I learned willingness was, what was it? You have 3 frogs on a log, and 2 of them decide to jump off. How many frogs are on the log? And it's still all 3 because, no one actually jumped off, but only 2 of them were willing to jump off. They made the decision. And so that's what willingness was defined like early in sobriety for me. And that one made sense because it didn't mean that I actually had to move my feet yet. And I liked that. I didn't want to have to move my feet yet. And then over the course of time, willingness has just kind of changed and evolved. And it pushes me sometimes because God's plan is different. And I remember I had a really cool thought one time, and then I called my sponsor and told him about it, and we both decided that would never happen because it was John's thoughts. It was John's plan, and that made me sad because it was a really, really cool plan. And but the thing about it is I can only see about this far in front of me. Like that's as far as my little narrow vision can see, and God's got, and it's way better. And just as like a quick little blip with that is I'm in Chicago right now, and it's freeze cold, and I don't have enough blankets, but I'm having a really, really, really cool time, and it's for school, and the way I'm in medical school, and the way I got connected with one of my friends said that this was the hardest rotation he ever did, and I was like, cool, sign me up. And he said once I finished it, I felt like I could do anything, and so here I am doing this, and it's really tough, it's really challenging, and I do feel like I can do a lot more after this. There's more to be done, but I feel like I can do a lot right now. And John's plan is that I come in and get everything I want and I leave, I put forth a good effort. I work hard. I show gratitude and this, that, and the other, and, lend a helping hand. And then I get what I want. I get my reward. And that's not how the world works, and so especially the last 24 hours or so, I've had to really sit with the idea that what does willingness look like? And if you have a goal and a dream, what does that look like? And in this particular case, it has to do with the occupation and the career trajectory. But what's interesting about it is all of the willingness that I worked on early in sobriety is right here now helping me again. And so the last 24 hours has been pretty uncomfortable. And the way that I responded to that was I had a tough conversation last night, and so I followed that up by prayer meditation. I don't know how, but I did. And then I followed that up with a phone call this morning with my mom. And then I followed that up with another phone call with the gentleman in AA. And all of those things together just made this blanket sit over me of comfort. And I haven't done anything. I don't feel like I've done anything. I just said, okay, and made a phone call. I did okay and sat down and meditated, okay, and got on my knees and prayed. And it doesn't feel like anything magnanimous. And what happens is these results start to become magnanimous. And that plan that I had way back in the day that I thought was super cool is, so insignificant compared to what God's plan is. And I challenge it because I start to get a little bit of freedom or comfort, or I start to see some things work out, and then all of a sudden it's back to driving the boat. And it just doesn't work like that for me. And that's why I need to have AA in my life, is because it keeps these core ideas that make John's life fulfilled and happy, even when all that external stuff isn't there. It makes me feel okay. And, the 12th step, are you like willing to carry the message to the next alcoholic? And in my mind, I've got to be in meetings and sponsees and books and this, that, and the other. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. That's one of the ways to carry the message. But, I'm at work and this woman is really drunk and telling me how she can't stop drinking. And I'm like, hey, I know a thing or two about this. I can connect to that. And so we start chatting, and she's got those same dead, like kind of cross-eyed, she's still drunk, that cross-eyed look of like, I can't stop drinking, I won't stop drinking. I don't know what the right words to say are, but it feels like the words just start pouring out. And that doesn't feel like it's the vehicle that John's body saying it, but it's not John speaking it. And I'll never forget that little blip. I don't know if she'll ever stay sober. I have no idea. I hope she does. She has some desperation. But there was willingness to carry the message right there. I could have chosen to say, yeah, well, hope you find a way. But instead it was like, oh, I've been there. I remember feeling really shitty about that. And I think that the more that I'm willing to do stuff, I start to see how different the results manifest. It's not always like parades and, confetti and ice cream and cake, which is always amazing and always welcome. But it is other things like this memory that I've got with this woman, this experience that I've got with this woman, the progress from the challenging conversation last night to where I'm at today. There wasn't it didn't feel like I did anything magnanimous. Like I said, I just kept moving my feet because some other people back in the day said, do this, do this, do this. And I said, okay. I ran out of ideas and I said, okay. And when you do get the result, it feels fabulous, whatever result that might be. It always reminds me back to a quote that I learned about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it says, our suffering doesn't come from things going wrong. It comes from our attachment to things going right. And that one pops up in my head all the time. And most recently in the last 24 is my attachment to things going right. And so I've got this vision and this plan, and then it doesn't happen, and I'm upset and I'm hurt. So former me drinks, current me now, I guess, meditates and calls people and helps people out. Strange. And now there's fulfillment in my life, and I'm able to feel better, right? I'm able to move on and feel better and understand some of this bigger picture stuff. I get so narrow-minded and focused on my problems and my issues that there's right here on my screen, there's 11 other people with their own sets of problems and issues and challenges and successes and happiness and all this other stuff, but it's all about me. And the more I've found that I'm willing to get out of me and stop thinking about me, there's just more happiness in my life. And it doesn't change the circumstances, but it changes the way that I approach those circumstances. And that's the only thing I can control. I can't control if I get the interview. Can't control if I get the job. Can't control if I get the X, Y, or Z. But my approach to it changes, and all of a sudden I'm happier about the situation. Like, damn, I got to apply to this program, and that's cool. Not many people got to do that. All right. Feels weird to just say that, but I'll accept that for the time, and move on. And so it's really, really cool to see how these principles go from AA and apply all over, because this is just a program of living. It's a program of life, and I need all of it because I suck at living life on my own. And so thank you guys for letting me be here and for sharing, and I'll pass with that.
Thank you, John, and good luck in your studies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see, who is just burning to share? What, John Agins? I got this vibe. I don't know what it was, man.
This meeting, man, holy cow. So I just had the pleasure of seeing Nikki, what was it, like 2 weeks ago up in Sedona at FOTS. And two things. One, she still wears Doc Martens, right? Two, the thing that kept on, mind the pun here, resonating this weekend, and Nikki will correct me if I'm wrong, was the hum. There was a hum in the room. The room was literally vibrating for the whole weekend, and it was just extraordinary. You felt it; it was palpable, and I feel it in this meeting, and that's it's such a special thing. I don't know what kind of mood I'm in. I just feel so grateful for this group on Wednesdays that I look forward to. I'm going to be brief because there's so many things that were just coming to mind, and I'll just, I would take up 20 minutes to repeat them. So the two things that I was thinking was, Jack and I have about the same amount of sobriety, right? And we have a very similar story, which is that we didn't come into, let's just call it the Fellowship of the Spirit family, right? Until a couple of years ago, and starting to really authentically do this work, right? And what I'm thinking is, can I imagine myself, let's say I'm 10 years sober, 20 years sober, just doing the usual open AA meetings or whatever, and having that churning in my gut that if I don't do something about this, I could see myself drinking. Can you imagine saying that at one of these meetings? Because my whole world was based on, I have this coin in my pocket that says XX or XXV or whatever, and I can't possibly show any weakness, even though, as Mickey will say from time to time, it's alcoholism, not alcoholism, and I still have that, that where does it hurt? I still have that pain in my soul that I haven't been able to fix. So here's what I want to say, and I'll make it brief. I did not choose to end up in Arizona, a retired urologist with 2 teenagers and a wife. This was not my plan. My plan was completely different. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm single. I've season tickets to the Giants. I've season tickets to the Knicks. I had a completely different thought process going on. And here I am, and I couldn't be happier. And I didn't do this. Right? So we know who did it, but at the time that I'm going through it, I don't see that. So now the question is this, and Mickey, you said it perfectly. I'm going to paraphrase it. I want to go to that next step, because when I look at my life, the past, there's no question that there's a loving God with this invisible hand guiding me. Why wouldn't I want to access that power before I continue with my life? Why wouldn't I want to just wake up in the morning and say, thank you, God. What are we doing today? Right? Instead of the way that I usually do things, which is, pain being the great motivator for willingness. Maybe there's a way that I can join God on this quest and actually do what he has planned for me. And I'm ready and willing, brother, because I'm sick of calling you on Mondays with the same shit. I'm trying to fix it. I'm failing. I pass.
Thank you, John. Somebody asked me early on in sobriety, how many times can I call you and about the same thing? And I said, let's start with 1 million. All right, so talk about plans. I have been accepted at a Maryknoll seminary to become a priest, and I met Marie, and all of that went away, and we are now, you know what I'm saying? And the adventure is what God wanted us to do, and thank you, dear Lord. Let's see. David, would you like to share?
Thank you, Mickey. I'm David. I'm an alcoholic. I really this the discussion really hits home with me. About 2 weeks ago, I was on this, as I shared with you before, was on this meeting, and my computer crashed, and it turns out my external hard drive crashed, and it has my whole Etsy store and everything on it, and so it's really a crash to my soul, because everything on it was created by me, of course, instead of God. Of course, never forget about Him, you know. So, but you know, nothing inspirational by Him. So, I've been sitting with that whole idea that I'm contemptuous of new ideas, because I know, as Nikki sort of said, I know too much. I know that. I know how it's going to end up. You know, I'm the smartest guy in the room and type stuff. So I love what it says in the back of the book, in the spiritual experience: willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. Who, WHO, rather than how. Who needs to be, and I need to be. It talks to me about the willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. And as was shared recently, my tunnel vision, my closed-minded, I can only see this far, and I'm afraid to see out further. And you know, if I can just step out of the room, like what's her name, Sir shared, Kate. I loved what she had to say, and I need to be more open-minded, and I need to be less fearful. And I love you all. Thank you so much for. Oh, my question the last week was, what is the dumbest thing you ever done? And I'll put it on the wall. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Awfully bold of you to assume you've peaked. All right. Okay. You know, this is like, and it would never happen, and it's not going to happen, but we need a 2-hour meeting, because it's like, it's really great. I'm just like saying, like, let's just all huddle up together and stay warm. All right, so Bill's Magic iPad, would you like to share?
Good evening, AA family. My name is Bill. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I thank God for this meeting, and I thank you people to introduce me to a way of life that would save my life. I wasn't doing a very good job of it when I came in, and I attribute my life today to the willingness to face my fear of living life without alcohol and trusting effing people. Because someone mentioned one of my favorite characteristics, it's cynicism and contempt, and based that is fundamentally based in fear. And that was me, baby. I've got tuxedos in those verses. And as my sponsors along the way can well attest to, that it has been a challenge for them as well as myself to directly confront those fears and challenge myself into a willingness to stretch my mind and my mind to open a little bit to make room for these spiritual concepts. Step 2 says a new understanding of God that we may or may not have ever learned. But you know what? If you find your own, that's what the program encourages us to do. Then the next portion of it is become willing to turn our will and our lives over to that God, that power that we understand Him. And by goodness, that is still, I've been around this program for a lot of years, and it's still a daily evolving, growing concept that just gets broader and deeper and more meaningful and more wonderful every day. And then we go to the fun stuff, the inventories. I just walked through my sponsee of 10 years, the 4-step column by column, because he's so smart that he just kind of goes, yes, I understand 2, I understand 3, I understand 4, now 5 is where we do this. And he just blew past all of the important itemized in column 1, 2, 3, and 4. And boy, when we backtrack through it, and this is the benefit of having a sponsor for 10 years, and you get to be a part of those layers of spiritual development and emotional change, and the rewriting of the mind. The willingness is there. He knows it, I know it. But there's still that point of facing that fourth column that just kind of triggers those autotonic walls of defense that go up and just go, mm-mm. And I could clearly hear him through the phone. Armoring up is the term that we use. The defenses are activating. The shields are going from yellow to red. And I paused and I said, I know we're struggling with this. And he goes, no, I'm struggling too, but I don't understand why. I trust you. And I said, it's our own fears. It's our defense network is autotonic. And once we open that door and we realize that the patterns of living and setting boundaries and controlling our lives so that we feel safe from fear and victimization, we find that they are antiquated, based on years of immature trying to control and victimize and power plays. Today, and we're asking to take that through this third step. Look at it, examine it, document it, share it with somebody else. Now let's go see step 6 says. There again, willingness to see what I found about me, evaluated about what I've learned in step 2 and 3, and just have that willingness to turn that part of my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. And once we do that, again, it's an evolving state or condition of the mind. And then we go to step 7, which is always a daily practice of comparing self against service, and this what the 9th step calls the spiritual life is not a theory. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Bill. All right, we have some time. Seriously, if you want to say something, raise your hand. This crew is just buttoned up, man. I'm loving it. So I'm going to call on Adam. Would you like to share?
Yeah. Thanks again, Adam, alcoholic. So when I first started my journey, I was willing to do anything to get sober, but that in reflecting, my initial willingness only came when God revealed Himself to me. Even though I knew in my heart of hearts that I wasn't living my life the way I needed to be living it, I still wasn't willing to change anything. I had to be forced into humility, and my life had to get just uncomfortable enough because I was so selfish to change anything. And it was only when God revealed Himself to me in a big way, and His message was clear, that I wasn't living the way that I was created. And that clicked. And so I started to trust Him. And then He'd reveal a little bit more, and I'd take another step. And then, like has been said before, then that trust finally started turning into reliance. And I'd say now that my biggest challenge is really discerning what's being asked of me. Is this coming from God, or is this coming from my own thoughts, or something completely different? But I'm lucky enough to realize that I can't do this program without God. And the program, it's not easy. Even though I've been through the big life-shaking moments and gone through that fundamental change, it's not fun taking a continuous deep dive into my mind and tendencies that are really hard to admit. And now I'd say that I'm not sure I'd be willing to take another big plunge in life unless I had that big revelation from God again. There's my selfishness yet again. And so I continue to, on a daily basis, ask God, show me your will for me and give me the power to carry that out. And I'd say my biggest challenge now is listening to that. and being willing to get out of my comfort zone if I need to. But it's really hard to determine what's God's true will for me. That's my big challenge now. But I'm trying to listen and do everything I can to stay in constant contact with Him, because that's the only way I'm going to figure that out. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. It's been wonderful for me to watch you in your progress in sobriety, man. I'm not kidding. This is like, and now that you're talking about the difficulties, man, you're in. You are in. This is it. So, Rogan, you got your headphones on. You allowed to share?
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Rogan Alcoholic. I love this topic. This is great, and I loved what everybody has said. The humility coming through on this side is just warming me up. I love it. Willingness for me currently is action. I got to make the action to show my willingness. I can't just sit back and think about it. I actually got to do something with it, and it's really humbling sometimes. Monday, I don't know what it was, but it was like a lightning bolt of the you suck the big one, buddy. I wasn't doing good at anything. I moved to Maine. I'm changing careers. I'm in graduate school. I changed things and sold things and all this kind of stuff. And alcoholism was on top of me with its boot on my throat. And I was just sitting there struggling. And that is not something that I've experienced that hardcore in a real long time. And somebody told me I was having a soul storm, and like this, I clicked, and I said, well, what did you do to get out of it? And well, my immediate willingness was to go to God and say, hey, I'm not that guy. I'm not that bad. Am I really? Help. Life jacket, please. And I did get that life jacket. I actually had class that day and showed up to school and met with some professors and some advisors, and some things started to moving, and all those doubts were reaffirmed, not in the doubt sense, but in the this is where you're supposed to be sense, and this is what's supposed to be coming. And it's the action, because then I can see it like everyone's talking about. I gotta do it, and then I gotta be able to see it, and then it's like makes total sense. Just like coming to AA. I gotta get off my butt and tap in, get to the meeting, show up, be present, and things happen. So thanks everybody. Love you. Stay warm. It's really cold where I am. It's
Thank you,
19.
Oh boy. -19. Hokey smokes, Batman. Marie, would you like to share?
Thanks. I'd love to share. When I got into the program, they were saying that you're powerless over this and that and this and that and everything. In Al-Anon, we're not powerless over alcohol when we put it in our bodies, but when somebody else did. But we have this huge list of things that we're powerless over. And so in my mind, I wanted to analyze that and find out if there was anything that I could do that I had power over. And what I finally came to conclusion is that the only thing I could bring to the table is willingness. And so just to be really short, I just did some more core inventory. And as a lot of people have said, I've found that my self-protection comes out in my immediate reaction to darn near anything is no. Don't want to do it. Don't want to think about it. Don't want to change. Don't want to, go there. And so, really, I have some real work to do on willingness. And And I think, I don't know who said it, but you know, the answer is that if we allow God to protect us, then we don't have to be so self-protective. And also, it was pointed out to me that I have no idea how to get out of this squirrel cage of self-protection and faith and dependency on God. And he really is going to have to teach me. And so I'm kind of excited also that I am coming into a new understanding of self-protection, lack of willingness, lack of faith, because I think ultimately, you know, if that faith can grow, I'm not going to be immediately jumping into protecting myself from anything new. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mickey, for calling on me.
Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you all. There's just no way I can express my love for you. And I'm so glad that I get to be with you. And Cheryl Whipple, would you take us out, please?
I will try.
Here we go.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Is that everything?
No, but it's a perfect attempt. You know what I'm saying? I wait for this. We do the drunkards, Our Father.
Well, and I always think the lead us not into temptation, we can find it ourselves.
Huzzah. Let's just say we're not perfect. And thank you very much. And don't worry about it, for God's sake. Anyway, don't worry about it. Anyway, let's unleash our talking here for a couple of seconds. Say hello.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Really loved everything you
That
said.
was great, Cheryl. I love that.
Cheryl.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cheryl.
A great line.
Stay warm, Rogan.
Bye, Marie.
Bye,
Okay,
guys.
Danny boy.